My father stopped answering my calls the day after his heart surgery. Not once. Not for 31 days. And when I finally drove 4 hours and knocked on that door myself, the woman who opened it was already wearing my mother's wedding ring. She thought she'd isolated a dying old man in a house with the locks changed. What she didn't know was that I'd spent 3 weeks quietly pulling every bank record, every pharmacy log, every signature tied to my father's name. She thought she'd broken him. She had no idea she'd just handed his son a paper trail that would end her. Before I tell you what I found inside that house, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe if you believe family loyalty isn't something you can forge on a piece of paper. The story. My name is Marcus Doyle. I'm 34. My father, Walter, raised me alone after my mother passed when I was 19. 2 years ago, he remarried a woman named Renata, 12 years younger, always a little too sweet in front of guests and a little too cold when it was just us. In March, Dad had triple bypass surgery. I called every single day that first week. Renata answered twice, said he was resting, and hung up fast. By week 2, my calls went straight to voicemail. Texts showed one gray checkmark delivered, never read. I told myself he was recovering. I told myself I was overreacting. But that wasn't even the strangest part. I called his cardiologist's office for a wellness check. They confirmed he'd been discharged 3 weeks earlier, fully alert, cleared for light activity. So why wasn't he picking up a phone? I drove out on a Saturday, unannounced, new deadbolt on the front door. Dad's old truck gone from the driveway, mail slot taped shut from the inside. Renata opened the door like she'd been expecting a delivery, not a son. He's sleeping. The stress of visitors isn't good for his heart, she said, blocking the frame with her shoulder. I pushed past her anyway. My father was in the back bedroom, 30 pounds thinner, blinking slow like the lights hurt. He smiled when he saw me, but it took him almost 10 seconds to say my name. 10 seconds for a man who used to recite my mother's birthday, my report cards, my little league batting average from memory. Dad, what day is it? I asked gently. He didn't know. I thought that was the lowest point. I was wrong. On his nightstand, half covered by a water glass, was a stack of papers. Power of attorney. Dated the day he was still in the ACU, his signature on it shaky, wrong, nothing like the steady hand that used to sign my school forms. Renata snatched it away before I could read the rest. Paperwork for his care, she snapped. None of your business. I left that night without arguing. I hugged my father, told him I loved him, and told Renata I'd be back to help with groceries. What she didn't know was that I'd already started digging 3 weeks earlier, the moment his calls stopped making sense. I'd pulled his pharmacy records, a public request any family member with medical authorization can file. He was on double the prescribed dose of a sedative, refilled twice in 1 month. Enough to explain the confusion. Enough to explain why he couldn't remember signing anything. I pulled the county recorder's office records. 4 days after his surgery, while hospital records showed he was still under monitored sedation, unable to sit up on his own, a quitclaim deed was filed, transferring half ownership of the house from his name into Renata's. Same week, 2 withdrawals drained his savings account. $11,000. Wired to an account that wasn't his. I hired an elder law attorney and, with her help, filed a report with Adult Protective Services. We had the hospital sedation logs. We had the pharmacy records. We had the deed filed while he was, by his own doctor's documentation, physically incapable of holding a pen steady enough to sign his name. 2 weeks later, a caseworker and my attorney met me at that same front door. This time, Renata didn't get to block anyone. I watched her face when the caseworker laid out the sedation log next to the deed's filing date. The exact hour didn't line up. Not even close. You forged it, I said. Calm, quiet, not a question. She didn't scream. She just went pale, then reached for excuses that got smaller and smaller until she stopped talking altogether. The deed was voided within the month. The power of attorney was revoked by court order. Adult Protective Services opened a formal investigation, and the district attorney's office confirmed charges were being prepared for financial exploitation of an elder. My father moved in with me that same week to recover properly, this time off the extra medication. seeing his own doctor, without anyone standing between them. Renata called me twice after that. Both times, she asked if there was any way to fix this quietly. I let both calls go to voicemail, the same silence she'd given my father for 31 days. For the first time since that surgery, I wasn't the one waiting by a phone that never rang. My father is doing better now. He remembers my mother's birthday again. He remembers mine too. They thought 30 days of silence would make an old man disappear quietly. They had no idea they'd just given his son all the time he needed to bring the whole thing down.